This week on Corinne's Pick, the art of TheArthur Wright. This week on Corinne's Picks, we have the wonderful art of TheArthur Wright. Welcome, TheArthur. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
It's been a long time since we've seen each other.
Yeah, I think we go back about 20, 25 years. It's been a while.
TheArthur lives in...
I've seen you since then, however.
TheArthur is a brilliant artist from Oakland, California. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your art, your career.
Well, I've been practicing art probably back into the early 70s to begin with. But mainly I'm a writer. That's where I began, and I kind of slipped by accident into becoming an artist, a fine artist. And sometimes I can mix the two, and I'm pleased with the results. So I came from Seattle. I grew up in Seattle, born in Arkansas, but I grew up in Seattle. And in the middle 60s, I moved to the Bay Area, originally to San Francisco. After several weeks, I moved over to Oakland, and I've been here ever since. And California agrees with me. I know New Yorkers love New York, but California agrees with me.
There's a lot of things I love about your art, but one of the things that makes your art really remarkable is the fact that, two things really. One, that you're an artist that has a unique process. You do a type of art called pontiflet, if I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Yeah, since it's a made-up word, I mean, that's still up for grabs. But it's pointillism, as the technique that I use. But pontiflet, I use pontiflet because I use bleach instead of paint in order to create my art.
No, go ahead.
And I've been doing it now for a little over 20 years exactly. 1997 is when I first came across that process, and I've been experimenting, continually discovering new things, and it works perfectly for what my aim in the art that I create. It works perfectly for that.
How long does it take you to complete a piece of work? Because I know you're doing tiny, microscopic dots with bleach. How long does it take to complete one painting?
Well, when I'm working at full speed, say like if I have a year's time, if I'm working at full speed, I can do 12 paintings per year. It didn't start out that way, of course. I had to learn so many techniques, so many different things to do. A lot of it was serendipity, that things came up by accident that I never even expected, that I eventually wound up using in my paintings. So it originally, what took me 3 months, I can do it now in 1 month. And I try to overlap. If I just have a vast number of things that I do want to create, but I try to overlap as I finish up on one, starting another piece.
So as you know,
and I very seldom work in series.
As you know, this show is about exploring works of art and also exploring your careers of artists. I see that there are 3 paintings behind you, and in a few minutes we're going to actually have you do most of the talking and explain a number of the images that we have of yours. But I did want to make a comment because this is Women's History Month.
Yes.
And one of the things that I truly appreciate that you've done through your work is that you really celebrate women. Because I know most of your images that I've seen, they seem to be, a lot of them focus on history, and a lot of them focus on the contributions, particularly of black women. So, being a black woman, I guess I'm a little bit biased, but it does make me feel really empowered. And I have to say thank you, and I really appreciate that about your work.
Well, thank you very much. And you hit it on the head pretty much that I do appreciate women. I think they're probably some of the most vital creatures in the universe. And that began early in my life when I realized that half the kids growing up in my neighborhood, that the girls, a number of the girls could either outrun the boys, and sometimes when they caught them, they could beat them up. And quite often they were smarter. So there was a lot of things to appreciate with all of that, and I been able to maintain that through most of my life, that the difference between a man and a woman in our existence here on earth is not that great. Women are very, very strong. They can do many things that that any man can do. So I give them credit for that. I give them credit. I mean, they have it naturally. I don't have to give them anything. But I've always appreciated that. In my own conversations with people, I try not to talk up or down to either male or female. I don't try to make distinctions between the two. And I think that's benefited me greatly as I've gone through life. But I see much in women that I think that are just, they can do things men cannot do. I don't mean just childbearing, but they have ways of calming the still waters that men have probably disturbed. But so yes, I'm a great appreciator of women, and when I get a chance, when I hear some fabulous tales, Amazons for one, politicians, the blue wave has impressed me mightily. That the biggest threat to certain people I don't have much use for. I know that they tremble. They tremble when they see the blue wave. They saw the blue wave forming up. So at any rate, yes, I appreciate females very much.
Those are very wise words. I don't want to. I don't want to run out of time before being able to explore some of your images. So I want to go straight to the first image, and perhaps I can be quiet and you can do most of the talking and explain the images for me.
Okay, and I'll make each one fairly short, and you can prompt me after that. Can you still see me? I'm
Yeah,
going to
yeah,
show you something.
absolutely.
Okay, so behind me are prints. These are not original paintings. These are prints
Well,
of the ones that I have.
well, we're gonna cut if we have time. We're gonna cut to some of the images that we have that are not. We actually have some of the ones that are behind you,
Okay,
so we want to put them in full screen so the audience can see them. So
okay.
okay, so
So you just want me to talk about them?
yeah, like the first one, I believe. Can you see it?
Queen Calafia.
Right.
Queen Calafia. A lot of people here, even Californians, are curious about where the name of California came from. How this state got that name. Well, Queen Calafia is a legendary figure, a mythical figure, written about 500 years ago by a Spaniard named Garcia Montalvo, Senor Garcia Montalvo, shortly after the printing press was invented. And by the means of the printing press and the fact that they could get many copies of books out, the legend of Calafia spread pretty quickly. And she was rumored to be 7 feet tall, black as the ace of spades, and she ruled vast armies of Amazons who were her equal physically, but they loved her as a sister, and she could command them without having to use much anything more than sisterly love. And they roamed the world, going to different trouble spots. But anyway, that's the source of the name of California. Calafia ruled the island of California. When it came time to name the state, they chose that. And here you have a picture of the Amazon that formed her vast armies. I would, if I had to make a guess, I would say probably 500,000 Amazons, all of them 7 feet plus, and could outrun any man. And you see with the spear, they didn't take many prisoners.
I think
So
I think it's incredible that you've been doing this for years, creating these images, and with the movie Black Panther, I was able to really see a connection. Some of the very same costumes with the ladies in red. You've been painting these ladies in red for as long as I've known you. So I think with Black Panther, Black Panther movie really validated what you're doing.
there have been about maybe 5 movies that, when they were first shown on screen in preview, that impressed me, impressed the hell out of me. Black Panther being one. Jaws, just certain things that had certain concepts. And Black Panther, to me, in studying the history of Africa and how matriarchal so many of their societies were, how the Amazons of Dahomey and other places had to remove one of their breasts in order to use their weapons of war. That there are so many things about them that impressed me. And Wakanda was pretty much representative of some dreams that I've had for many, many years. And I'm glad to see that another Oaklander came up with the idea of putting it on screen.
That's true. That's true. Okay, so let's look at some more images, please.
Sure. Now here you have the pork pie hat of Frank Sinatra sitting above a G-clef that has been kind of manipulated a bit. That little hook at the very bottom should be facing to the other way. But this was meant to show, and if you really look closely in the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see a drummer beating a drum, an African drum.
I see
looking
it.
up at the G-clef.
Yes.
And then at the gas cloud that you find formed out in the universe. This, to me, is the rhythms of the universe that they all take part in and that they all symbolize. And one could not do without the other. Mankind cannot exist without the powers of the universe, and the universe has a rhythm signified by the G-clef. So I had fun with this. Now you have here the Buffalo Soldier. He's charging away from the fire behind him, and the flag itself is on fire. The Buffalo Soldier pretty much did a lot of the settling of the west of the United States. I believe had that Buffalo Soldier realized what he was doing at that time, he may have turned that horse around and ran into the fire to maybe attack or converse with those who sent him to war in the first place. But he was called the Buffalo Soldier because of the fierceness with which he fought, and he gained the respect of the Native Americans who were here. So as you can see, I try to do a lot of history. Now here, more homage to the ladies. These are Zulu ladies wearing Zulu garb. The hat, the Isacholo is the hat, the conical hat that's turned upside down. And they're simply enjoying themselves. This is really based upon a group called Shikisha out of, I don't know which city, but anyway, out of South Africa. And I think that they just represent the ease with which they can get into the flow of life. I think they're beautiful.
I think that's really remarkable what you're doing, also because I think for Black women in this part of the world, there's always an issue in terms of our aesthetic, in terms of our dark skin, our woolly hair, and to have an artist who is exalting Black women's beauty, I think that strengthens us in some way because, we in our neighborhoods we have stores in every corner selling us, silky straight hair, bleaching creams, things that really are trying to de-emphasize our Negroid, characteristics. And so
Right.
I'm really enjoying seeing your images that are celebrating Negroid African beauty.
What I see in black
Mm-hmm.
women, I see also in black men. There's the respect that have been denied them for 500 years since the beginning of slavery, when the Portuguese came down the west coast of Africa and basically monetized slavery in a huge way, in a very devastating way. So I see the same thing in black men as I do the warriors that I paint. One of the paintings I want to do next will involve the Haitian three amigos, the three musketeers. I'm thinking of Alexander Dumas was half Haitian, who wrote the Three Musketeers. He existed at the same time that Toussaint Louverture existed, and Toussaint had a lieutenant, Dessalines, that was just as vicious as you want to be. But they helped Haiti become a free state. And even to this day, they have repercussions that they're suffering because of that. But anyway, I saw in them some dignified men who had deep self-respect, the utmost confidence, and the utmost capabilities. And I want to capture that. And I want to capture that in all of our people. They don't have to be well-known heroes. They don't have to be anyone great. They can be just a mother taking care of her children and helping to take care of her village
We're
and
gonna
making it all.
we're going to come back in a few minutes. We're going to a PSA quickly, and then we're going to continue our conversation with the brilliant TheArthur Wright.
Oh, thank you.
Mm. Welcome back. TheArthur, when you left, we were talking about how you actually trying to give dignity back to Afro Americans and I guess Black people in the Black diaspora. Can we continue discussing your slides and learning a little bit more about your work?
Sure, ready to go.
Okay, so can we see some more slides, please?
All right, now here you have the King and the Beast. They have competition, strong competition. I am a tiger fan more so than a lion fan. But I remember many years ago when I was stationed in Japan through the Air Force in the early 60s that the song of The Lion Sleeps Tonight. Well, the title of this one is that This Lion Does Not Sleep. And I didn't struggle with it, but like I wavered between several different titles for it. Now here you have my take on the African way of thinking about the problems of the day with the French. They had the statue by Rodin that he was simply struggling to remember what his wife told him to bring home for dinner that night. So this lady seemed to do it quite easily. And this is Maasai, by the way, in case anyone who doesn't know the beadwork. Egypt probably stands taller in my mind than almost any other country on earth. This is the goddess Mot. Her job was simply to keep order in the community, and actually she's just simply another form of the of Isis. Isis is the goddess who can assume many shapes. But this is one of my favorite ladies, and actually it's one of the things that can I show this that I collaborated with a friend of mine in South Carolina who used my image over the 42 negative confessions of Egypt, the laws of Mott, and this is a big seller for us.
Actually, the author, I think you mentioned to me that you had certain tools that you used to create those images. Can you just briefly show me the tools you're using to create those images?
Okay, I have to really give compliments to another Oakland entity. The headquarters are here in Oakland.
Well, actually, I don't think we can show that bottle of, I think because of advertising. But we just say the word bleach without saying the brand name, I guess. Everybody knows the brand name, but you can't say it.
Well, there's about 5 or 6 different brand names.
Okay.
But at any rate, that is my main. That is my paint. This is my paintbrush. This is a chopstick, bamboo. This is a bamboo skewer. Both of these I use quite often. When I make a mistake that I cannot correct with bleach, I use a black marker to kind of go back and take care of the problem. That and this little bottle is where I put my maybe a tablespoon of bleach into
okay,
the.
yeah, right. Correct.
And then I use that much like any ink, dip, dot. And if I really am in a hurry, I might get 2 or 3 of them like this, and then go that way. And because I want the dots to be random, I don't ever try to put them together.
Can you hold those sticks up a little bit higher for a minute? Because
Surely.
Your camera is cutting off half of them.
Surely.
Right, like that. So you go dot with that. Okay. All right.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
And I can use both ends.
Okay.
The sharp end, of course, when I want to do the fine work, and I can reverse it and, get larger dots where I need to.
Okay. So let's go back to some of your, because I don't want to not see all your images. So let's talk about your images again, okay?
Okay. All right. This is another San Francisco legend, a actual real life legend that lived. Born into slavery, about 1820, 1815, somewhere in that neighborhood. Got married and moved up to Maryland. She was born in Alabama, moved up to Maryland. And her husband, Mr. Pleasant, disappeared somewhere along the way. And she came to San Francisco. This is Mary Ellen Pleasant. Moved to San Francisco out of slavery. She became a millionaire. To this day, there are tours that are being conducted that a friend of mine that kind of turned me on to her. He does a tour in San Francisco of the Black history of the city. And she became a millionaire, and she died somewhere around 1912. Miss Mary Ellen Pleasant. Now here you have a mask. I've done a series of 9, and this is the mask of the west coast of Africa. I'm not even sure which countries they come from, but I think the Ife and Benin are some of the sources of the mask. But they just represent the life that Picasso saw, and used in his own particular way.
I think it's important for the audience to know that you're self-taught.
Well, self-taught, but I learned pretty much in school. But I think I'm from a family of 8 kids, 4 boys, 4 girls. And I seem to have the inside track on doing a lot of things. I was able to read and write, cursive writing as well, at the age of 3. And in kindergarten, well, I was a little ahead of the rest of the classmates. And at a certain time, probably about the 1st grade, maybe 2nd grade, I developed a little logo that I put on my papers, my test papers that I had to turn in at the end of the day. And that little logo didn't change very much over the next 2 or 3, maybe 4 years. So the teachers took notice of that, and they kind of gave me certain things to do. So that was my teaching round.
Okay.
By the time.
So we have about 1 minute left for the show.
Sure.
So I want to show like maybe 1 or 2 more slides, and then we can, I guess then we'll probably end the show.
Sure. Okay. I'm with you. Here we have another Maasai. This is a lady who's thinking very deeply. I like to give my images a universal background. And I think that kind of signifies that the universe sanctifies her children. She gives them all that they need in order to survive and live a good life. Usually it's turmoil from outside that disturbs that life. But she, I think, represents the dignity that the Messiah has. To me, they're the most beautiful people that Africa has produced. And in their culture and their style. I'm probably more impressed with the Zulu, however, and also the people from Guinea. To me, they are the best drummers that I've come across. So I think I'm a diasporan. I'll say that I paint the diaspora. And like I say, it doesn't have to be a hero, but they have to be heroic in their dignity, heroic in their spirit.
You know, I really appreciate, you know, we've known each other forever. I appreciate you coming on the show. I appreciate you sharing your work with us. If anybody would like to see more of his art, when the credits roll, you'll see that it's TheArthurWright.net. So his contact information will be there, his email. Thank you very much for being on the show, TheArthur, and hopefully we can do this again.
Well, I think when my name comes up, if you would emphasize, I was born with that name and I did not make it up. So it just seems to fit.
It's actually a word author, right? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I enjoyed it.